The headache arrived before consciousness did. Marcus Thorne's first sensation wasn't sight or sound, but pain. A deep thrumming ache that started at the base of his skull and radiated forward, like someone had taken a sledgehammer to the back of his head. His mouth tasted like copper and regret, and his body felt heavy, disconnected, like he'd been awake for 3 days straight and then dropped from a significant height. He groaned and tried to move, but his limbs protested. Everything hurt. Slowly, awareness crept in. He was lying down, something soft beneath him, too soft. His mattress at home was a lumpy disaster he'd bought secondhand 4 years ago, the kind that made his back ache if he slept wrong. This wasn't that. This was the kind of softness that cost money. Real money. The kind he'd never had and never would. Marcus forced his eyes open. The ceiling above him was white and flawless, interrupted only by the gentle glow of recessed lighting that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once. Crown molding traced elegant lines along the edges. A crystal chandelier hung in the center, catching the morning light that filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows to his left. He blinked, then blinked again. Where the hell am I? Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself upright. The room swam into focus piece by piece. King-size bed with Egyptian cotton sheets, a sitting area with leather furniture that probably cost more than his annual salary used to be. Abstract art on the walls that he didn't understand but could tell was expensive. Everything was cream and gold and pristine, the kind of space that existed in a different universe from the one he inhabited. His heart started to hammer in his chest. This is wrong. This is all wrong. Marcus looked down at himself. He was still wearing his clothes from yesterday, jeans and a white button-down shirt that had seen better days, his only pair of decent shoes. But the shirt was wrinkled, partially unbuttoned, and there was a stain on the sleeve he didn't remember getting. His jacket was draped over a nearby chair. Then he saw it. On his left hand, fourth finger, sat a ring. Not just any ring, a wedding band. Platinum by the look of it, with a subtle brushed finish that caught the light, simple, elegant, expensive. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He stared at the ring like it was a live snake that had somehow wrapped itself around his finger. His mind raced, grasping for memories that refused to surface. He remembered yesterday afternoon, getting laid off from his data analyst position at Stratton Financial after he'd caught his supervisor doctoring quarterly reports. He remembered the sick feeling in his stomach as he'd walked out with his final paycheck, knowing it wouldn't be enough to cover rent and Emma's medication refills. He remembered stopping at a liquor store, buying a bottle of the cheapest whiskey they had, thinking maybe just this once he'd let himself fall apart. After that, nothing. Just fragments. Flashes of light, music, voices, the sensation of being in a crowded space, but no coherent narrative, no through line that would explain how he'd ended up here in what was clearly a luxury hotel suite wearing a wedding ring. "You're awake." The voice came from across the room, cool, composed, feminine. Not friendly, but not hostile either, just observational, like someone noting a data point in a spreadsheet. Marcus's head snapped up, and the movement sent a fresh wave of pain crashing through his skull. He winced, then focused on the source of the voice. A woman sat in one of the leather armchairs near the window, backlit by the morning sun. For a moment she was just a silhouette, but as his eyes adjusted, details emerged. She was beautiful in a way that seemed almost constructed, not artificial, but purposeful, like every element had been carefully considered. Dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun, a face with sharp cheekbones and eyes that assessed him with the kind of calculation usually reserved for business transactions. She wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than his car, fitted perfectly to a frame that spoke of personal trainers and controlled diets and a life lived with precision. But it was her expression that stopped him cold. No anger, no confusion, no emotion at all, really. Just a calm, measured regard, like she was looking at a puzzle piece that had finally fallen into place. "Who are you?" Marcus's voice came out as a croak. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Who are you?" The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached for something on the side table next to her chair, a slim folder, the kind lawyers used, and stood with the kind of grace that came from years of practiced poise. She crossed the room in 4 measured steps and stopped a respectful distance from the bed. "My name is Vivien Cross." Marcus's stomach dropped. No, 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 no. Even someone like him, someone who lived paycheck to paycheck and could barely afford cable, knew that name. Vivien Cross was a fixture in the business world, the CEO of Cross Industries, one of the largest conglomerates in the country. Her company had fingers in everything: real estate, technology, manufacturing, media. She was famous not just for her success, but for her reputation. Ruthless, brilliant, and completely unapproachable. The business magazines called her the Ice Queen of Commerce. Rumor had it she'd never lost a negotiation in her life, and she was standing in front of him, looking at him like he was a contract she'd just signed. "I know you're confused." Vivien's tone was unchanged, measured, and calm. "You have questions. That's understandable. But before we get to those, we need to address something immediate." She held out the folder. Marcus stared at it, his mind still trying to catch up. "What is that?" "A marriage certificate." Vivien said it simply, like she was discussing the weather. "Yours and mine. It was filed with the county clerk's office at 11:15 last night. Witnessed, notarized, and completely legal." The room tilted. "What?" Vivien opened the folder and pulled out a document, holding it out to him. Marcus took it with shaking hands. The letterhead was official, governmental. His eyes scanned the text, but the words barely registered. Marriage license, state registry. Marcus Thorne and Vivien Cross. His signature was at the bottom. He recognized the scrawl. It was his, no question, but he had absolutely no memory of signing it. "This can't be real," he whispered, still staring at the document. "I don't even know you. I've never even met you. Why would I marry you? Why would we do this?" Vivien's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Not emotion exactly, but a kind of assessment, like she was calculating his next move before he'd even made it. "That's irrelevant right now. What matters is what happens next." She walked back to her chair and sat down, crossing her legs with deliberate care. Marcus remained on the bed, the marriage certificate in his hands, his mind racing through scenarios he couldn't quite process. "You have 2 options," Vivien continued, her voice cutting through the chaos in his head with surgical precision. "Option 1. I have the marriage annulled. You sign the paperwork, walk out of this room, and receive $500,000 in cash, transferred to an account of your choosing within 24 hours. You leave the same way you entered, broke, unemployed, and running out of time. But at least you'll have money to cushion the fall." Marcus looked up at her, trying to read her face, searching for some sign of deception or trap. But Vivien Cross looked like someone who didn't need to deceive. She looked like someone who had made a business proposition and was waiting for a response. "And option 2? He asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Vivien leaned forward slightly, and for the first time he saw something underneath the ice. Not warmth exactly, but interest, like he'd just done something unexpected. "Option 2. The marriage stays. 1 year. You and your daughter move into my penthouse. You take a real position at Cross Industries, VP of Data Analytics. $175,000 annually, full benefits. You appear with me at business functions, family events if they arise, anything that requires the appearance of a married couple. In private, you're free to live your life however you choose, as long as it doesn't create scandal. After 1 year, we dissolved this quietly, and you receive a settlement generous enough to ensure your daughter's medical needs are met for the foreseeable future. The mention of Emma hit him like a physical blow. How do you know about my daughter? I know quite a bit about you, Marcus Thorne. Vivien's tone was matter-of-fact, neither apologetic nor defensive. 34 years old, widower. Your wife Naomi passed away from breast cancer 3 years ago. You're raising your daughter Emma alone, age 6, currently attending Riverside Elementary on a hardship scholarship. You were employed as a senior data analyst at Stratton Financial until 4:30 yesterday afternoon, when you were terminated for what your supervisor called insubordination. Your savings account has a balance of $847. You're 3 weeks behind on rent. Your daughter has a congenital heart condition that requires medication you're struggling to afford, and monitoring you definitely cannot. Marcus felt his chest constrict. You investigated me. When? How did you even have time? I've known about you for much longer than last night. Something in her tone shifted just barely, just enough that Marcus noticed. It wasn't warmth, but it was the first crack in the ice, much longer. What's that supposed to mean? Vivien was quiet for a moment, her gaze steady on his face. Then she seemed to make a decision. You don't remember me. I didn't think you would. It's been a long time and you were sick afterward. But 20 years ago, in the slums on the east side, behind the old textile factory, some men cornered me. I was 18. They had intentions I won't detail. You were 14. You stepped between us. Marcus's head was spinning, trying to process this new information, searching his memory for something, anything that would confirm what she was saying. But there was nothing, just a vague sensation of familiarity, like déjà vu that wouldn't quite solidify. Vivien reached into her jacket and pulled out a small object, setting it on the table between them. Marcus leaned forward, squinting. It was fabric, old and worn. A jacket. Navy blue, frayed at the edges, the kind a kid might wear. You gave me that after you fought them off. Vivien continued, her voice quieter now, more controlled. You were bleeding. They'd hurt you badly, but you sat with me until I stopped shaking. You told me your name, told me to keep the jacket because it was cold, then you walked away. I never saw you again. 3 months later, I heard through the shelter network that you'd gotten sick. Meningitis. They said there were complications, memory loss. Marcus stared at the jacket, and something tugged at the edges of his mind, a fragment of something, but it wouldn't come into focus. I don't remember any of that, I know, but I never forgot. Vivien's eyes met his, and for just a moment the Ice Queen facade slipped, and he saw something underneath, something old and buried and surprisingly vulnerable. You were the first person who ever protected me without wanting something in return, and I never forgot that. The pieces were coming together, but they still didn't form a picture that made sense. So what? You engineered this? Got me drunk and married me because of something that happened when we were kids? Number Vivien said firmly, the controls sliding back into place. What happened last night was chance. Fate, if you believe in such things. I was at the hotel for a business function. You were at the bar. We spoke. You don't remember, but you were coherent, angry, grieving the loss of your job, worried about your daughter. I recognized you almost immediately. The eyes are the same, and you just decided to marry me? I made you an offer. Vivien corrected, her tone precise. I told you my situation, that I needed a husband for business purposes, someone outside my usual circles who wouldn't have ulterior motives. You considered it. You asked questions, and eventually you agreed. Marcus put his head in his hands. This was insane, all of it. I was drunk. This can't be legally binding if I was intoxicated. You weren't incapacitated. Vivien interrupted, her voice cutting through his protest with surgical precision. Intoxicated, yes, but functional. The witnesses will attest to that if necessary. The marriage is legal, Mr. Thorne. That's not in question. He looked up at her, and for the first time he felt a flash of anger cut through the confusion. So what now? You just expect me to go along with this? Play house with a billionaire because we signed some papers while I was too drunk to know better? I expect you to be practical, Vivien replied, unfazed by his tone. You have a daughter who needs medical care you cannot provide. You have no job, no savings, and in approximately 2 weeks you'll have no home. I'm offering you a solution. In exchange for what? What do you get out of this? Vivien stood again, smoothing her suit. My company is in the middle of a critical merger. Patterson Global, $2 billion. The board is traditional, conservative. They've made it clear that my lack of a personal life is becoming a liability in their eyes. They want to see stability, a family, the image of someone who can balance both worlds. So I'm your prop. You're my partner in a mutually beneficial arrangement. Vivien countered, her voice sharp. I provide financial security for you and your daughter. You provide the appearance of a stable marriage for 1 year. After that, we can dissolve this quietly and you'll receive a settlement generous enough to ensure Emma's medical needs are met for the foreseeable future, plus educational funds, housing assistance, whatever she requires. Marcus studied her face, looking for some sign of deception, some hint that this was a trap. But Vivien Cross didn't look like someone who needed to deceive. She looked like someone who had made a business proposition and was waiting for a response. And if I say no, then I'll have the marriage annulled immediately, Vivien said simply. You'll leave this room with $500,000 and no obligations. You'll be exactly where you were yesterday, except substantially wealthier. It was a good offer, an incredible offer actually. Life-changing money, no strings attached. He could pay off Emma's medical bills, get her the monitoring she needed, find a new apartment, take his time finding the right job instead of taking whatever he could get. But something about it felt wrong. Something about taking money for nothing, for a mistake made while drunk, for signing his name on a document he didn't remember. It felt like selling something he couldn't afford to lose, no. The word came out before he'd fully processed the decision. Vivien's expression shifted just slightly. Surprise, maybe? Or calculation? Excuse me? Marcus stood, his legs steadier than he expected. I said no. I don't take money for nothing. And I don't sell my dignity, not for any amount. Mr. Thorne, be reasonable. $500,000 could change your life. It could, but it would also teach my daughter that desperation is an excuse to compromise your integrity. And I won't do that. For the first time since he'd woken up, Vivien Cross looked genuinely thrown. Nobody, it seemed, had ever refused her money before. Then what do you want? Marcus took a breath, his mind racing through possibilities, through consequences, through the reality of what he was about to propose. You want a husband? Fine. But offer me a job first. Real work, fair pay, something I can actually do, something I can be proud of. Then we talk about the rest. Vivien stared at him for a long moment, her analytical mind clearly working through this new variable. Finally, she spoke, and there was something in her voice that hadn't been there before, something that might have been respect. You're hired. VP of Data Analytics. $175,000 annually. Full benefits. You'll report directly to me, and I'll expect results that justify your salary. The marriage stays, 1 year minimum. We'll negotiate terms that satisfy us both. Do we have a deal? Marcus extended his hand. One condition. I pay 20% of Emma's medical expenses. I contribute. I don't take handouts. Vivien's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile but was close. 20%. Agreed. They shook hands, and Marcus felt the weight of what he'd just agreed to settle over him like a heavy coat. He'd just committed to a year of his life, to uprooting Emma, to living a lie with a woman he didn't know. But at least he'd done it on his terms. The drive back to his apartment complex took 20 minutes through morning traffic. Vivien had offered her driver, but Marcus had refused, taking the subway instead, needing the time to think, to process, to figure out how the hell he was going to explain this to his 6-year-old daughter. The building was on the 4th floor of a structure that had been run down when he'd moved in and had only gotten worse since. The elevator had been broken for 6 months, so he climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. His head still throbbed from the hangover, and his entire body felt like it had been put through a blender. But his mind was clearer now, focused on what came next. He unlocked the door quietly, not wanting to wake Emma if she was still asleep. The apartment was small, a one-bedroom that he'd converted by hanging a curtain to give Emma her own space. The furniture was mismatched, salvaged from thrift stores and curbs, but it was clean. He'd made sure of that. Whatever else he couldn't provide, he could at least give her that. "Daddy?" The voice came from behind the curtain, small and sleep-rough. "Emma." Relief and dread washed over him in equal measure. "Hey, Ladybug," he said, pushing the curtain aside. "Did I wake you?" Emma was sitting up in her bed, really just a mattress on the floor with a frame he'd built from pallets. Her dark hair was tangled around her face, and she looked so small, so fragile, even though she hated when he said that. She was wearing her favorite pajamas, the ones with dragons on them, and clutching the stuffed rabbit he'd given her for her 4th birthday. "Mrs. Martinez said you had to work late." Emma's eyes were sharp, assessing. She'd always been perceptive, too smart for her own good sometimes. "Did you?" Something like that. Marcus sat down on the edge of her bed, trying to figure out how to begin. "How are you feeling?" "Okay," she said, but he could see the tightness around her eyes that meant her chest hurt. "Did you really get fired?" He should have known she'd overheard. The walls were thin, and Emma had always been good at picking up things adults tried to hide. "Yeah, Ladybug, I did. Because of that mean man? The supervisor who yelled at the lady?" "Because I did the right thing," Marcus corrected gently. "Sometimes the right thing costs something." Emma was quiet for a moment, picking at her blanket. Then, in a small voice, "Are we going to be okay?" It was the question that haunted him every night, the one he didn't have a good answer for. But looking at her now, at the trust in her eyes, at the way she believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself, he made a decision. "Yes," he said firmly. "We're going to be okay, I promise." "How do you know?" Marcus thought about the ring on his finger, about Vivien Cross's cold proposition, about the choice that wasn't really a choice at all. "Because I'm going to do whatever it takes, and you're going to trust me." "Can you do that?" Emma nodded, reaching out to take his hand. Her grip was small but strong. "I always trust you, Daddy." Those words nearly broke him. He stayed with her for a while, reading her favorite books, making her lunch, pretending that the world outside their small apartment didn't exist. But eventually he had to tell her. Eventually he had to explain that their entire life was about to change. "Ladybug," he said as they sat together on the worn couch, Emma's dinosaur coloring book spread across the coffee table. "I need to talk to you about something important." Emma set down her purple crayon, Naomi's color, and looked at him with those eyes that saw too much. "Okay, my life is changing. New job, good job, really good pay. But it means we'll be moving, living somewhere different for a while. Like a new apartment? Sort of. More like a new home, with someone else." Emma's forehead crinkled. "Who?" "Her name is Vivien. She's my new boss, and she's going to be around a lot. We'll be staying at her place. Is she nice?" Marcus thought about Vivien's cold composure, her calculated words, the way she'd laid out their arrangement like a business merger. "I think so, but you'll decide for yourself." A knock at the door interrupted them. Marcus checked his watch. Right on time. He'd texted Vivien the address, told her to come by at 2 if she wanted to meet Emma before they made this official. He opened the door and Vivien stood in the hallway, looking completely out of place in the dingy corridor. But she'd changed. Instead of the power suit, she wore dark jeans and a cream sweater, her hair down around her shoulders instead of pulled back in that severe bun. She looked younger somehow, less intimidating, almost normal. "Mr. Thorne," she said, then caught herself. "Marcus, come in." He stepped aside and Vivien entered, her eyes quickly scanning the apartment, taking in the worn furniture, the peeling paint, the cramped space, but there was no judgment in her expression, just observation. Emma was standing by the couch, clutching her stuffed rabbit, watching Vivien with the kind of intensity only children could manage. Vivien approached slowly, then did something Marcus didn't expect. She crouched down, bringing herself to Emma's eye level, a gesture that seemed both natural and carefully considered. "You must be Emma. I'm Vivien. Your dad's told me a lot about you." Emma tilted her head, studying Vivien with the same analytical gaze her father often wore. "You're really pretty." For the first time since Marcus had met her, Vivien looked genuinely surprised. A small, tentative smile crossed her face. "Thank you. You're pretty beautiful yourself." "Are you my dad's new boss?" Something like that. Vivien replied, and Marcus appreciated that she wasn't lying, just simplifying. "I was hoping we could be friends, though. Would that be all right?" Emma considered this with the seriousness of a judge. "I have rules for friends." Vivien's smile widened slightly, and Marcus saw genuine amusement flicker across her face. "What kind of rules?" "No lying, no making promises you can't keep. And you have to like purple because that's my mommy's color and it's the best color." "Those seem like excellent rules," Vivien said seriously. "I can agree to all of them, especially the purple one. It's my favorite color, too." Emma beamed, and just like that, some invisible barrier dissolved. "Really? Really? In fact, when I was your age, I had a purple jacket. Someone very kind gave it to me when I needed it most." Emma's eyes went to her father, then back to Vivien, and Marcus could see her making connections, trying to piece together the puzzle of why this woman was here, why her father's energy had shifted. "Do you want to see my coloring?" Emma asked suddenly. "I'm working on dragons. They're hard because you have to make them look scary but also kind of sad because they're lonely." Vivien settled onto the floor next to Emma without hesitation, her expensive jeans on the threadbare carpet, examining the coloring book with what appeared to be genuine interest. "I'd love to see." Marcus watched them from the doorway, this surreal tableau of his daughter and a billionaire CEO sitting on his apartment floor discussing the emotional complexity of dragon illustrations. Vivien asked questions that made Emma light up, following the elaborate mythology Emma had created for her dragon characters, nodding seriously at explanations about fire breath and treasure hoards. "This one is Violet," Emma explained, pointing to a purple dragon. "She lost her family, but she's learning to be brave anyway." "That's a good name." Vivien's voice was softer than Marcus had heard it. Being brave when you're scared is the hardest kind of courage. After about 20 minutes, Emma's energy started to flag. Marcus could see it in the way she slowed down, her words coming a little slower, her breathing a little more labored. Vivien noticed too. He saw her eyes track the change, saw the concern that flashed across her face. "Emma," Vivien said gently, "would it be all right if I talked to your dad for a few minutes?" "Grown-up stuff. Kind of boring." "That's okay." Emma yawned, already pulling herself back onto the couch, reaching for her favorite blanket. "I'm kind of tired anyway." Marcus helped her get comfortable, then followed Vivien into the kitchen area, really just a corner of the room separated by a half wall, but it offered some semblance of privacy. "She's wonderful," Vivien said quietly, her eyes still on Emma. "Bright, funny, incredibly perceptive. She's everything." Marcus replied simply. Vivien turned to face him, and the softness from earlier was still there, threading through her usual composure. I spoke with Dr. Miriam Reeves this morning. She's the leading pediatric cardiologist in the country. I've already had Emma's medical records from the clinic transferred over. Dr. Reeves reviewed them and wants to see Emma next week for a full evaluation. Marcus's throat tightened. You did all that already? I move fast when something matters, Vivien said. Based on what she's seen so far, Emma's condition is stable but will require close monitoring. In 6 to 8 months, we'll likely need to discuss surgical options. But for now, the focus is on proper medication management and regular checkups. Every 4 weeks. That's expensive. That's what the benefits package is for. And your 20% contribution, if you insist on maintaining your pride. It's not about pride. It's about teaching her that we contribute to our own lives. Vivien studied him for a long moment. Your wife, Naomi, she taught you that, didn't she? Among other things. Marcus felt the familiar ache in his chest, the one that came whenever he thought about Naomi for too long. She believed in dignity, in doing things the right way, even when the wrong way was easier. I would have liked to meet her. She would have liked you, I think. She had a thing for people who were tougher on the outside than the inside. Is that what you think I am? I think you built walls so high you forgot what it feels like when someone scales them. Vivien's breath caught just slightly. And you're scaling them? Emma is. I'm just along for the ride. They stood in silence for a moment, and Marcus felt something shift between them. Not attraction. Not yet, but understanding. Two people who'd survived different kinds of hell, recognizing the same scars in each other. The move happened Saturday, Vivien said, pulling out her phone. I'll send a team to pack everything. You don't need to lift a finger. No, Marcus said firmly. I pack my own life. Just send a truck. Emma and I will handle the rest. Vivien looked like she wanted to argue, then thought better of it. Fine. The truck will be here at 9 a.m. The penthouse has a room ready for Emma. You'll have your own space. I've kept my word about that. About that. Marcus leaned against the counter. We need ground rules, real ones, not just the corporate arrangement. I'm listening. First, Emma comes first. Always. If your business conflicts with her needs, business loses, agreed. Second, we tell her an age-appropriate version of the truth. I don't lie to my daughter. What does that look like? We tell her you're my boss, that we're helping each other out, that this is temporary but could become permanent if we all decide we like it. When she's older, if this lasts, we tell her more. Reasonable. Vivien nodded. Third rule, you honor Naomi's memory. Emma talks about her mother. She draws pictures of angels watching over us. She needs to know that loving you, if it comes to that, doesn't mean forgetting her mom. Something flickered in Vivien's eyes. Pain, maybe, or recognition. I would never ask her to forget. Or you. Good. Because I won't. I love my wife. I always will. That doesn't mean there's no room for new people, but it means they need to understand they're not replacing anyone. I understand. Vivien's voice was quiet. More than you know. They stood there in the cramped kitchen, two people bound by a contract neither fully understood yet, making promises they hoped they could keep. Before Vivien left, she returned to Emma, who was dozing on the couch. She crouched down again, gently pulling the blanket up around the little girl's shoulders. It was such a simple gesture, so tender that Marcus found himself staring. She reminds me of someone, Vivien said softly, not looking at him. Who I was at that age, before I learned to build walls. You were in foster care, Marcus said. You told me that this morning. How many homes? 7. Before I ran away at 16, that's why you recognize her drawings. The angels, the purple, the need to believe someone's watching over you. Yes. Then you understand why this matters, why I can't fail her. Vivien stood, and when she looked at him, the Ice Queen was gone. In her place was just a woman who'd survived things she shouldn't have had to. I won't let you fail her, Marcus, I promise. After she left, Marcus sat on the edge of Emma's bed, watching her sleep. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, steady but requiring effort. Dr. Reeves's words echoed in his head. 6 to 8 months until they'd need to discuss surgery. 6 to 8 months of monitoring, of medication, of hoping her small heart could hold out. He thought about Naomi, about her last words before the cancer took her. Protect our baby, and when you're ready, let yourself be happy again. He'd kept the first promise. He'd die before he broke it. But the second one, that had seemed impossible until today. Marcus pulled out his phone and looked at the contact Vivien had added before leaving. Her personal number. He typed out a message. One more rule, when this is over, if it works, we do it right. Real vows, real commitment. Emma deserves to see that love can be built, not just found. The response came 30 seconds later. Agreed. See you Saturday, Marcus. He looked at the ring on his finger, this symbol of a marriage that had started as a drunken mistake and was somehow becoming something more complicated. Something that might actually matter. Emma stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Daddy? Is Vivien gone? Yeah, Ladybug. She had to go back to work. I like her. She has sad eyes like you did. Before you got less sad. When did I get less sad? Today, when you looked at her, like maybe it's okay to be happy again. Marcus's throat closed. Sometimes he forgot how much his daughter saw, how much she understood despite being only 6 years old. Would it be okay with you if I tried to be happy? Emma reached out and took his hand, her grip small but fierce. Mommy would want that. She told me in my dreams. What did she say? That you're allowed to love people. That love doesn't run out. You just get more. Marcus pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, steady but struggling. And if I love Vivien someday, if we become a real family, then we'll have more love. That's good, Daddy. Mommy says that's always good. He held his daughter as she drifted back to sleep and thought about the impossible thing he'd agreed to. 1 year of pretending, of living in a world that wasn't his, of being married to a woman he barely knew. But as he sat there in their cramped apartment with Emma's steady breathing and Naomi's memory surrounding them like a protective shield, Marcus realized something. Maybe pretending wasn't the right word. Maybe what they were doing was building, constructing something new from broken pieces, testing whether two people who'd survived impossible things could create something worth keeping. His phone buzzed one more time, another message from Vivien. I kept your jacket all these years, the one you gave me. I'll show it to you Saturday. Maybe it'll help you remember. Marcus stared at the message, at this woman who'd held onto a piece of fabric for 20 years, because it represented the first time someone had protected her without wanting something in return. And he thought about how he'd refused her money this morning, how he'd demanded a job instead of a handout, how he'd negotiated from a position of dignity even when he had nothing. Maybe that's what she'd been looking for all along, not someone to buy, but someone who couldn't be bought. He typed back, I may not remember that night, but I'm starting to understand who you are. See you Saturday, Vivien. Saturday would come soon enough. The truck, the move, the beginning of a year that would either save them or destroy them. But tonight, Marcus sat with his daughter in their worn apartment, a ring on his finger and hope in his chest, and for the first time in 3 years, he let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, Naomi had been right. Love didn't run out. You just got more. The truck arrived at exactly 9 o'clock Saturday morning, a sleek moving van that looked more like it belonged to a luxury service than a standard relocation company. Marcus had spent the previous 2 days sorting through their belongings, deciding what mattered and what could be left behind. Turned out, When you'd lost everything once before, you learned to travel light. Emma sat on her bed, surrounded by boxes, wearing her favorite purple dress and clutching her stuffed rabbit. Mrs. Martinez stood in the doorway, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue she kept tucked in her sleeve. "You call me if you need anything." The older woman's voice cracked. "Anything at all. That little girl, she's special. You're doing right by her." "I hope so." Marcus taped the last box shut. "I really hope so." The penthouse occupied the entire 40th floor of a glass tower in the financial district, the kind of building Marcus had walked past 1,000 times without ever imagining he'd step inside. The elevator required a key card to access the top floor. When the doors opened directly into Vivien's home, Emma gasped. The space was enormous, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Modern furniture in shades of white and gray, art on the walls that probably cost more than Marcus would make in a lifetime. Everything was clean, precise, elegant, and absolutely terrifying. Vivien emerged from what looked like a home office, dressed casually in black slacks and a silk blouse. Her hair was down again, softer than the severe style she wore for business. "Welcome home." She knelt to Emma's level. "What do you think?" "It's like a castle," Emma breathed, spinning in a circle. "Do we really get to live here? Really, would you like to see your room?" Emma's room was down a hallway, perfectly designed for a child but not drowning in pink like some adults thought little girls wanted. Bookshelves already lined with age-appropriate novels, a window seat overlooking the city, a desk for homework and drawing, everything a child could need, arranged with care. "There's an art station in the closet." Vivien opened a door to reveal a complete setup, paints, markers, canvases, everything. "I didn't know what supplies you'd prefer, so I got variety. We can exchange anything that's not right." Emma ran to explore, and Marcus found himself alone with Vivien in the hallway. "You didn't have to do all this." "Yes, I did. She's part of this arrangement, Marcus. She deserves to be comfortable." "Part of the arrangement." The words stung more than they should have. "Right. The arrangement." Vivien's expression shifted, something that might have been regret. "I didn't mean it like that, didn't you?" Before she could answer, Emma called out, "Daddy, Vivien, come look." They found her at the window seat, pointing at the city below. "I can see everything from up here. The whole world, not quite the whole world." Vivien settled beside her. "But a good portion of it. Can you see heaven? Because Mommy's there and I want to make sure she can see us too." Vivien's breath caught just for a moment. "I think your mommy can see you no matter where you are. That's what mothers do. They watch over the people they love. Even from heaven? Especially from heaven." Marcus leaned against the doorframe, watching them together, and felt something crack open in his chest. This woman who built empires and destroyed competitors was sitting with his daughter, talking about angels with complete sincerity. Monday morning brought reality crashing back. Marcus's first day at Cross Industries started at 7:30 with a meeting in Vivien's corner office. The building was all steel and glass, the kind of place where even the air felt expensive. Vivien sat behind a desk that could have doubled as a landing strip, reviewing documents. She looked up when he entered, and the woman from the weekend was gone. In her place sat the CEO, all business and sharp edges. "Your office is on this floor, 3 doors down." She slid a folder across the desk. "Personnel files for the analytics team you'll be managing. Most are competent. 2 are dead weight. You'll figure out which within the week. And if I want to make changes, then make them. You're VP. Act like it." The work was brutal but satisfying. Marcus dove into financial reports, data streams, predictive models. Within 3 days, he'd identified 7 inefficiencies in their forecasting system. Within 4, he'd caught an accounting error that would have cost the company millions. Friday afternoon, Vivien called an executive meeting. The boardroom was filled with senior leadership, including Vanessa Killian. The CFO, a sharp-eyed woman in her early 40s who watched Marcus like a cat studying prey. Our new VP of Analytics has found something worth discussing. Vivien's tone was neutral, but Marcus caught the hint of pride underneath. Marcus? He stood, projecting the data onto the screen. Your Q3 projections are off by $8 million. The error originates in the charity fund allocation. Someone coded the decimal point incorrectly, routing funds to the wrong accounts. Vanessa leaned forward, her smile pleasant but her eyes cold. That's quite an accusation for someone who's been here less than a week. It's not an accusation. It's an observation. The data's all here. I reviewed those numbers myself. There's no error. Then you missed it. Marcus met her gaze evenly. Or you didn't want to see it. The room went silent. Alistair Pembroke, the board chairman, an older man with silver hair and the bearing of someone who'd commanded rooms for decades, cleared his throat. Mr. Thorne, you're certain about this? Completely. I can walk you through the code line by line if needed. Alistair turned to Vanessa. Well, I'll have my team review it immediately. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. If there's an error, we'll correct it. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Marcus. After the meeting, Vivien caught his arm in the hallway. That was well played. I was just doing my job. You were establishing dominance. Vivien's eyes gleamed. Vanessa's been with this company for 8 years. Nobody's ever questioned her numbers. Maybe someone should have. The dynamic at the penthouse shifted as weeks passed. Emma thrived in her new environment, her medication managed by Dr. Reeves, her energy levels stabilizing. She started attending a private school near the building, making friends, bringing home drawings that covered the refrigerator in colorful chaos. Mornings became a routine. Marcus would wake early, find Vivien already in the kitchen attempting breakfast. The first week, she burned everything. The second week, slightly less. By week 3, she could manage scrambled eggs without setting off the smoke detector. This is harder than running a company. She stared at the pan one Tuesday morning, watching eggs slowly solidify. That's because companies follow predictable patterns. Breakfast requires intuition. I don't have intuition. I have data and strategy. Here. Marcus moved beside her, adjusting the heat. Naomi used to say cooking is just patience in edible form. You're trying to force it instead of letting it happen. Your wife sounds like she was wise. She was. And she would have appreciated someone who actually listens when corrected. They cooked together, their movements gradually synchronizing, and Emma watched from the table with knowing eyes that saw far too much for a 6-year-old. You two are getting good at the teamwork thing, she observed, munching on toast. We're practicing. Marcus set a plate in front of her. How's school? Good. I told my teacher about my family. About Mommy in heaven and Daddy and Vivien, who's teaching herself to cook because she wants to make me happy. Vivien froze, spatula in hand. You told her that? Was I not supposed to? Emma tilted her head. It's true. You are learning to cook for me, and it does make me happy. That evening, after Emma was asleep, Marcus found Vivien on the balcony, the one overlooking the city lights. She held a glass of wine and stared at the skyline like it held answers. She's not wrong, you know. Marcus leaned against the railing beside her. You are trying to make her happy. I'm fulfilling my end of the arrangement. Is that what we're calling it now? Vivien took a long sip of wine. What else would we call it? I don't know. Maybe the thing where you spent 4 hours last weekend researching dragon mythology because Emma wanted to know if her drawings were anatomically accurate. That was educational enrichment. Vivien, she turned to face him, and the armor cracked. Fine. I care about her. Is that what you want to hear? I care about that little girl more than I've cared about another human being in 20 years. And it terrifies me because I don't know how to do this without destroying it. You're not going to destroy anything. How can you be sure? I destroy things, Marcus. It's what I'm good at. Companies, competitors, anyone who gets too close. Emma's not a competitor, and neither am I. Vivien set down her glass, her hands trembling slightly. What are we then? Marcus thought about the question, about the past 3 weeks of synchronized mornings and bedtime stories where Vivien sat in the corner listening with hungry eyes, about the way she'd held Emma's hand at the last doctor's appointment, her grip tight enough to leave marks. We're people learning to be a family, even if we're not sure how. The 4th week brought a shift. Vanessa requested a private meeting with Marcus, cornering him in his office late Thursday afternoon. I've been reviewing your work. Her smile was sharp enough to draw blood. Very thorough, very impressive for someone with your background. Thank you, although I do wonder about the timing, getting hired days after marrying the CEO. Some might see that as convenient, some might. I see it as being qualified for the position. Of course. She perched on the edge of his desk. I'm sure everything is completely legitimate. The marriage, the job, the sudden elevation from unemployed analyst to VP. No questions at all. Is there a point to this conversation, Ms. Killian? Just friendly advice. Scrutiny comes with the territory at this level. Best to make sure everything can withstand inspection, personal and professional. After she left, Marcus sat in the gathering darkness, her words echoing. He pulled out his phone and called Dominic Shaw, the general counsel, a man in his 50s who'd been with Cross Industries since its founding. I need to understand something. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to investigate my background and marriage to Vivien, what would they find? Dominic's pause was telling. Hypothetically, they'd find an unusual timeline. Termination, financial desperation, marriage within 72 hours. From the outside, it could look questionable. And if they looked deeper, they'd need access to sealed records, medical files, financial statements. That would require board authorization or significant legal overreach. Could Vanessa get that authorization? Not alone. She'd need allies. Why are you asking? Just making sure I understand the landscape. Week 5 brought Emma's regular checkup. Dr. Reeves examined her thoroughly, reviewed the latest scans, adjusted medication dosages. She's stable. The doctor's calm professionalism was reassuring. Heart function is holding steady. Medication is working as intended. We'll continue monitoring every 4 weeks, and in approximately 6 months we'll reassess whether surgical intervention is necessary. 6 months. Marcus felt Vivien's hand find his under the table, her grip solid. And until then, she lives like any other child. School, friends, normal activities, just no extreme exertion. After the appointment, they took Emma to Central Park. She ran ahead, not too fast, but moving freely, chasing pigeons and laughing. Vivien and Marcus walked behind, maintaining the careful distance of 2 people still figuring out their boundaries. 6 months feels like forever and no time at all. Vivien's voice was quiet. Enough time to plan, not enough time to prepare. We'll be ready, whatever she needs, will we? Because I've been thinking about what happens after the year, after this arrangement ends. Do you want it to end? Vivien stopped walking, turning to face him. I don't know what I want. I know what I agreed to. 1 year, clean separation, settlement, done. That was before. Before what? Before you learned to make pancakes, before you memorized the schedule for Emma's medication. Before you started calling this place home instead of the penthouse. Vivien's eyes searched his face. And you? What changed for you? Everything. I came here thinking I'd survive a year of pretending. Now I'm not sure I want to pretend anymore. The 6th week exploded. Vanessa called an emergency board meeting, presenting a dossier she'd compiled on Marcus. His termination letter, framed as firing for incompetence rather than whistleblowing. Financial records showing his desperation. The marriage timeline stark and damning. This appears to be a calculated scheme. She projected the data for all to see. An unemployed man facing eviction suddenly marries our CEO and receives a VP position. I believe this warrants investigation. Alistair studied the documents, his face unreadable. These are serious allegations, Vanessa. What exactly are you proposing? A full background review, financial disclosure, verification of credentials. We owe it to our shareholders to ensure this arrangement is legitimate. Vivien sat at the head of the table, her expression carved from ice. Mr. Thorne's credentials speak for themselves. He's identified and corrected multiple errors in our systems, saved the company millions, and earned respect from every team he's worked with, which doesn't address the appearance of impropriety. Vanessa's voice was silk over steel. I'm not questioning his abilities. I'm questioning the circumstances. Marcus had been silent through this, watching, waiting. Now he stood and the room shifted attention to him. You're right, Ms. Killian. The circumstances look questionable. I was desperate, broke, terrified my daughter would lose access to medical care. Vivien offered a solution, and I accepted it. But let's be absolutely clear about something. He pulled out his laptop, connecting to the room's display system. Since you're interested in investigations, let's investigate everyone, starting with the charity fund discrepancy I flagged week 1. The screen filled with financial data, wire transfers, account numbers. Marcus had spent the past 5 weeks following the trail, digging deeper than the simple decimal error. The 8 million wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. Funds were routed through a shell company in the Cayman Islands, VK Holdings. Your initials, Ms. Killian. You've been embezzling from the company charity fund for 26 months. $2.1 million total. The room erupted. Vanessa went pale, her composed mask shattering. That's absurd. Those are accounting errors, nothing more. Errors don't forge signatures. Marcus advanced to the next slide. Your signature. 8 separate wire transfers, all documented, all traceable. Alistair's face had gone stone. Vanessa, is this true? Of course not. This is a desperate attempt to deflect scrutiny. Then you won't mind a full forensic audit. Dominic Shaw stood, his legal mind already processing implications. I'll initiate it immediately. Marcus returned to his seat, his heart pounding but his exterior calm. You wanted to investigate ethics, Ms. Killian. Congratulations. You played yourself. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Vanessa was suspended pending investigation. 2 board members who'd supported her suddenly found urgent reasons to recuse themselves from discussions. Alistair called for an executive session, excluding everyone except core leadership. Vivien caught Marcus in the hallway afterward, pulling him into an empty conference room. You knew about this week 1? Day 3, actually. The data was obvious once I started looking. Why didn't you tell me? Because if I exposed her unprovoked, I'd look vindictive. New hire attacking established CFO? That's a bad look. But if she attacked first, if she made this about ethics and propriety, then you look competent and she looks desperate. Exactly. Vivien stared at him, something like awe crossing her features. You've been playing chess while everyone else played checkers. No, I've been doing my job. She chose to make it personal. The kiss happened without planning, Vivien closing the distance between them, her lips finding his with an intensity that spoke of weeks of restraint breaking. Marcus responded, his hands finding her waist, pulling her closer, and for a suspended moment, the corporate world disappeared. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Vivien pressed her forehead against his. This is complicated. Everything about us is complicated. I'm falling in love with you. Both of you. That wasn't the plan. Plans change. Marcus pulled back enough to meet her eyes. Naomi used to say life laughs at plans. Your wife was very wise. She was. And she would have liked you. Because you see people, Vivien, not assets or opportunities. People. That night, Emma had a nightmare. Marcus woke to her crying, rushing to her room to find Vivien already there, sitting on the bed holding Emma while she sobbed. "What if I die like Mommy? What if my heart just stops? You're not going to die." Vivien's voice was fierce. "We're not going to let that happen." "But what if the doctors can't fix me? Then we'll find doctors who can." "But Emma, listen to me. Your heart is strong. Your mommy's heart was strong too, in different ways. She fought so hard to stay with you, and she'd want you to fight just as hard to stay with us." "How do you know?" "Because I know what it's like to be scared and alone, and I know what it's like when someone fights for you even when they don't have to. Your daddy did that for me once, a long time ago, and now we're both fighting for you, always." Marcus stood in the doorway watching this woman he'd married as a business arrangement comfort his daughter with words that came from somewhere deep and real. When Emma finally fell back asleep, Vivien carefully tucked her in, smoothing her hair back with infinite gentleness. In the hallway, Marcus caught her hand. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. She's mine now, too." "Maybe not legally, maybe not by blood, but in every way that matters." "When did that happen?" "Week 2, when she drew that picture of the three of us as dragons. She labeled me Vivien, who has sad eyes but is getting happier. That's when I knew I was lost." Week 8 brought news. Vanessa's audit confirmed everything Marcus had found and more. Federal authorities got involved. 6 board members who'd accepted kickbacks quietly resigned. The company's stock initially dipped, then surged when investors realized corruption had been removed. Alistair personally called Marcus into his office, pouring 2 glasses of scotch. "That was the most calculated professional dismantling I've witnessed in 40 years. "I don't know what you mean." He laughed, actually laughed. "You waited until she attacked, let her build her case, then destroyed her with her own weapon. That's not luck, son. That's strategy. I just did my job. Your job." Alistair swirled his scotch. "You know Vivien tried to hire VPs 3 times before you. All of them failed within months. She's brilliant but impossible to work with. Yet somehow you've lasted 8 weeks and made yourself indispensable. Maybe because I'm not trying to impress her. I'm trying to do good work. Or maybe because you see her as a person, not a position." That Friday, they took Emma to soccer tryouts. Dr. Reeves had cleared her for light activity, nothing extreme, but enough to feel normal. Emma wore her purple cleats, her face serious as she lined up with other 6-year-olds. She's going to be disappointed when she doesn't make the team. Marcus watched her attempt to kick the ball, her coordination still developing. "She's not trying out to win." Vivien's voice was soft. "She's trying out to prove she can. There's a difference." Emma didn't make the competitive team, but she made the recreational league, and when she ran back to them sweaty and grinning, she threw her arms around Vivien first. "I did it. Did you see? I ran the whole field. I saw. You were magnificent." That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus and Vivien sat in the living room, the city lights painting shadows across the walls. Week 8. Vivien traced the rim of her wine glass. 4 more months until we reassess the arrangement. Is that what we're still calling this? What else would we call it? A relationship. A family. Something real. Vivien set down her glass. If we make this real, if we commit to this beyond the contract, what happens when it fails? When you realize I'm too damaged, too cold, too much work? Then we deal with it. Marcus moved closer. But Vivien, you're not too damaged. You're just scared, and that's okay. So am I. You're scared? Terrified. Because Emma's already calling you Mom in her drawings. Because I wake up and my first thought is whether you remembered to eat breakfast. Because somewhere in the past 8 weeks, this stopped being an arrangement and became my life. Vivien's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this. How to be vulnerable without being weak. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the only way to actually connect. The kiss was different this time, slower, deeper, weighted with promise instead of desperation. When they finally broke apart, Vivien's walls had crumbled completely. "I love you." She whispered it like a confession. "I love Emma. I love the life we're building, and it scares me more than any boardroom ever has." Love is supposed to be scary. If it's not, you're not doing it right. Is that more wisdom from Naomi? No, that's from me. Because loving you, loving this, it requires courage I didn't know I had. They sat together as the city slowly quieted. Two people who'd started as strangers navigating towards something neither had planned but both desperately wanted. The arrangement was becoming irrelevant. What mattered now was the choice to keep choosing each other. Sunday morning, Emma burst into their room at 6 a.m., climbing into bed between them with the easy familiarity of a child who knew she belonged. "I had a dream about Mommy again." Marcus pulled her close. What did she say this time? That I should tell Vivien something important. Vivien opened her eyes, fully awake now. "What's that, sweetheart?" "That it's okay." Emma nestled between them. "Mommy says it's okay for you to be my mom, too. That love doesn't replace love. It just makes more." Marcus felt his throat close. Vivien's hand found his over Emma's small body, their fingers intertwining. "Your mommy was very smart." Vivien's voice was thick with emotion. "And she's right. We can love her and love each other, and it all fits together. Like puzzle pieces." Emma yawned. "We're puzzle pieces that fit." They stayed in bed longer than necessary, the three of them, watching the sun rise over the city, building something that had started as a transaction but was becoming a foundation. 9 weeks in, Marcus realized something. The contract specified 1 year. They'd completed just over 2 months. 10 more months stretched ahead, full of possibilities and dangers, and moments like these where everything felt both fragile and unbreakable. Vivien must have been thinking the same thing, because later that day she called him into her office. "I've been thinking about the arrangement, the timeline, the exit clause." Marcus's heart sank. "Yeah, I want to modify the contract." She pulled out a document. "Remove the 1-year limitation. Make this open-ended. We stay together as long as it works. We separate if it doesn't. No predetermined end date. You want to make this permanent. I want to make this real. There's a difference. Permanent implies obligation. Real implies choice. Every day we choose this. Every day we choose each other." Marcus read through the modifications, the legal language translating to something simple. They were taking the training wheels off, making this a real marriage, not a business arrangement with a timer. "What about Emma? If this fails, if we can't make it work, she's the one who gets hurt." "Then we make sure it works." Vivien's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "I don't fail at things that matter, Marcus. And this matters more than any company I've ever built." He signed the modification. So did she. Dominic witnessed it, filing it away with a knowing smile. That night they told Emma together, explained that the arrangement had changed, that they weren't pretending anymore, that this was their family for real. Emma looked between them with those two wise eyes. "I already knew. You two are really slow at figuring stuff out. When did you know?" Week 1. When Vivien sat on our old apartment floor and talked to me about dragons like I was the most important person in the world. That's when I knew this was real. Marcus pulled both of them close, his daughter and his wife, and felt something settle in his chest. The fear didn't disappear. The uncertainty remained. But underneath it all was foundation, solid and true. 9 weeks down, a lifetime to go. And for the first time since Naomi died, Marcus believed they might actually make it. Week 10 arrived with the kind of precision that made Marcus check the calendar twice. Emma woke Tuesday morning complaining that her chest hurt, not the usual discomfort, but something sharper. Something that made her gasp when she tried to take deep breaths. By the time they reached the emergency room, her lips had a faint blue tinge that turned Marcus's blood to ice. Doctor Reeves met them in the pediatric wing, her calm professionalism a thin veneer over genuine concern. She ran tests, ordered scans, listened to Emma's heart with the kind of focused attention that meant something had changed. The condition progressed faster than we anticipated. She pulled Marcus and Vivien into a consultation room while Emma rested under observation. What we thought would be 6 months has accelerated. We need to move the surgical timeline up significantly. How significantly? Vivien's hand found Marcus's, her grip tight enough to hurt. 2 to 3 weeks. Dr. Reeves pulled up imaging on the screen. The heart muscle is working too hard to compensate. If we wait, we risk permanent damage or worse. The surgery is her best option now. Marcus felt the floor drop away. 3 weeks. Not months to prepare, to plan, to build up reserves of courage. 3 weeks. What are the risks? Dr. Reeves's pause was answer enough. With Emma's particular anatomy, we're looking at an 85% success rate. The procedure is complex but manageable. However, there's always risk with cardiac surgery, especially in pediatric cases. 15% chance of complications ranging from minor setbacks to critical outcomes. 15%. Marcus heard his voice as if from a distance. 1 in 7. Those are good odds, Mr. Thorne. Among the best we can offer. Tell that to the 1 in 7. Vivien's fingers tightened. What happens if we don't do the surgery? Progressive deterioration, increasing episodes like this morning. Within 12 to 18 months, cardiac failure. The surgery isn't optional, it's necessary. They sat with Emma in the recovery room while her color slowly returned to normal, medication easing the immediate crisis. She was drowsy but aware, her eyes tracking their faces. I heard the doctor. Her voice was small but steady. My heart needs fixing. How much did you hear, Ladybug? Enough. Am I going to die like Mommy? The question hung in the sanitized air, impossible to answer with certainty, unbearable to answer with honesty. Number Marcus knelt beside her bed, taking her small hand. You're going to have surgery and it's going to make you better. Strong enough to run without getting tired, to play soccer for real, to do everything you've wanted to do, but what if something goes wrong? Vivien moved to the other side of the bed, her composure cracking. Then your daddy and I will be right there. We're not leaving you, Emma, not for 1 second. What if I don't wake up? The words gutted them both. Marcus looked at Vivien across their daughter's bed and saw his own terror reflected back. You will. Vivien's voice was fierce despite the tears streaming down her face. Because we need you. Because you're the best thing that's ever happened to either of us. Because this family doesn't work without you. Promise? Neither of them could promise. Not honestly. But they did anyway, the lie a gift of love. We promise. Emma fell asleep holding both their hands, and Marcus and Vivien sat in the dim hospital room, united by fear and helplessness. If something happens to her. Marcus couldn't finish the sentence. It won't. You can't know that. Then I choose to believe it, because the alternative is unthinkable. They stayed until visiting hours ended, then returned to the penthouse that felt cavernous without Emma's presence. Mrs. Martinez had come by to check on things, leaving a casserole neither of them could imagine eating. Marcus found himself on the balcony, staring at the city lights, trying to process a timeline that had collapsed from manageable to terrifying. Vivien joined him, wrapped in one of his old sweatshirts, looking younger and more vulnerable than he'd ever seen her. I've been thinking about what happens if we lose her. Don't. No, listen. If we lose her, we have to promise something. We have to promise we stay together, that we don't let grief destroy what we've built. Vivien, I can't think about that right now. I need you to. Because I've lost everyone I've ever cared about, Marcus. Everyone. And if I lose Emma, if I lose you too, I won't survive it. He pulled her close, feeling her shake against him. You're not losing either of us. How can you be sure? Because we're fighters. All three of us. Emma most of all. The next 2 weeks existed in a strange suspension of time. Emma was released from the hospital but kept on strict activity restrictions. No running, no exertion, just quiet activities while they waited for the surgery date to arrive. Vivien took a leave of absence from Cross Industries, delegating to Dominic and Alistair. The board didn't protest. Alistair actually called personally to express support. Family comes first. His gruff voice carried unexpected warmth. The company will be here when you return. That little girl won't be 6 forever. They filled the days with gentle activities. Reading together on the couch, Emma drawing elaborate pictures of dragons and families and purple angels. Vivien learning to braid Emma's hair, her fingers clumsy at first but improving with practice. Marcus cooking meals that none of them ate much of, the act of preparing food providing structure when everything else felt chaotic. Week 11 brought an unexpected crisis. A tabloid somehow got hold of their story, not the sanitized version, but the raw truth. The headline screamed across newsstands, "Billionaire's fake marriage, dying daughter, desperate father, $2 billion lie." The article laid out everything. Marcus's termination, his financial desperation, the marriage timeline, Emma's medical condition. It painted him as a gold digger, Vivien as a fool, Emma as leverage in an elaborate con. Marcus found out when Emma came home from school crying, a classmate's parent having shown the article to their child who'd promptly shared it with the entire 2nd grade. "Kids are saying we're fake," she sobbed into Marcus's chest. "That you only married Vivien for money, that I'm just being used. Who told you this?" Sophia's mom showed her the newspaper. Now everyone's talking about it. Vivien appeared in the doorway, her phone in hand, her face carved from ice. "Patterson Global is threatening to pull out of the merger. The board is convening an emergency session. They want me to address this publicly or step down." Marcus looked between his daughter and his wife, rage building like pressure in his chest. "We fight back. We tell the truth. The truth is complicated." Vivien's voice was hollow. "The truth makes us look exactly like the article claims. Then we own it. We own every complicated, messy part of it. Because the truth is our family is real, even if it started unconventionally." The board met Thursday afternoon in Cross Industries' main conference room. Every member present, including several Marcus had never met, investors and stakeholders who'd appeared specifically for this crisis. Alistair presided, his expression neutral. "Vivien, the board needs clarity. These allegations, if true, could undermine shareholder confidence and kill the Patterson deal. We need to understand what actually happened." Before Vivien could respond, Marcus stood. "May I address the board? Mr. Thorne, this doesn't concern you directly, doesn't it? I'm the one being accused. I think I've earned the right to speak." Alistair considered, then nodded. "Proceed." Marcus moved to the front of the room, standing beside Vivien, presenting a united front. "Everything in that article is factually accurate. I was unemployed, broke, and desperate when I married Vivien. The timeline is correct. The financial situation is correct. From the outside, it looks exactly like what they're claiming." Murmurs rippled through the room. One board member, a silver-haired woman named Patricia Whitmore, leaned forward. "So you're confirming this was a transaction?" "I'm confirming it started as one. But here's what the article doesn't mention. Here's what nobody outside our family knows." He pulled out his laptop, connecting to the room's display system. "For the past 11 weeks, I've worked for this company. Not as Vivien's husband, but as VP of Analytics. Let me show you what I've accomplished in that time." The screen filled with data, error corrections that had saved millions, efficiency improvements that had streamlined operations, the Vanessa Killian fraud case that had led to criminal charges and board reforms. I didn't marry my way into competence. I earned my position through work that speaks for itself. Ask anyone on my team. Ask the departments I've collaborated with. Ask the stakeholders whose returns improved because of the changes I implemented. That's not the point. Patricia's voice was sharp. The point is the appearance of impropriety. You're right, appearances matter. So let's talk about appearances versus reality. Marcus advanced to the next slide, showing a photo. This is my daughter, Emma, 6 years old, born with a congenital heart defect. She needs surgery in 8 days, surgery that will either save her life or end it. Those are the stakes. He looked directly at Patricia. Yes, I married Vivien because I was desperate. Because my daughter was dying and I'd exhausted every other option. But what the article calls a scheme, I call a father doing whatever it takes to protect his child. And if you want to call that gold digging, fine. I'll own it. Because my daughter's life is worth more than my The room went silent. Marcus felt Vivien's hand on his arm, steadying him. But here's what changed. What started as desperation became something real. Vivien didn't just give us financial security, she gave Emma a mother. She learned to cook breakfast because she wanted to make our daughter smile. She memorized medication schedules and doctor's appointments. She sits up at night when Emma has nightmares, holding her and promising everything will be okay. He turned to Vivien, his voice softening. And she gave me permission to love again. To believe that honoring my first wife's memory doesn't mean closing myself off to new people. That family can be built, not just born into. So yes, our marriage started as an arrangement, but it's become the most real thing in my life. And if this board wants to destroy that because it looks bad on paper, then you'll have my resignation within the hour. But you won't have Vivien's integrity questioned for doing something decent in a world that usually rewards cruelty. He sat down, heart pounding, unsure if he'd just saved them or destroyed everything. Alistair cleared his throat. Anyone else wish to speak? I do. Vivien stood, her voice steady but her hands trembling. Everything Marcus said is true. I offered him a business arrangement because I needed to satisfy this board's archaic requirements for leadership. You wanted me married, settled, showing family values. So I found someone I trusted, but what I found was more than I bargained for. I found a man who refuses money if it compromises his dignity, who exposes corruption even when it's dangerous to do so, who puts his daughter before everything, including his own comfort and safety. She looked around the room, meeting each board member's eyes. I've built this company over 15 years. I've increased shareholder value by 400%. I've never lost a major negotiation, but I would give it all up, every dollar, every achievement to keep this family intact. So if you want my resignation, you can have it. But understand what you're choosing. You're choosing appearances over substance, performance over character. And that's a company I no longer want to lead. The silence stretched, heavy with consequence. Then Dominic Shaw stood. I've worked with Vivien Cross since she founded this company. I've watched her navigate hostile takeovers, market crashes, and board rebellions. But I've never seen her as effective as she's been these past 11 weeks. He pulled out his own data. Productivity is up 18%. Employee satisfaction scores are the highest on record. Marcus Thorne's analytics department has become the most requested transfer destination in the company. Whatever is happening in her personal life is making her better at her job, not worse. Patricia shifted uncomfortably. That's not the point. Then what is the point? Dominic's voice was sharp. Because from where I'm sitting, the point should be results, and the results are undeniable. Alistair called for a vote. All in favor of requesting Vivien's resignation, raise your hand. 3 hands rose, Patricia and 2 others. All opposed? 8 hands, including Alistair's. The motion fails. Alistair's voice carried finality. Vivien retains her position with full board support. As for the Patterson merger, I'll contact their CEO personally. If they want to base business decisions on tabloid journalism, they're not partners worth having. After the meeting, Marcus and Vivien sat in her office, the adrenaline crash leaving them both shaky. You would have resigned. Marcus's voice held wonder. You would have actually walked away for you and Emma? In a heartbeat. That's the moment I knew. Knew what? That this isn't just real for me. It's everything. Vivien crossed to him, cupping his face in her hands. When Emma gets through this surgery, when she's healthy and strong, I want to do this right. Real vows, real commitment. Not because of a contract, but because I choose you. Every day, always, the kiss tasted like salt and promise, desperate and hopeful in equal measure. The next morning brought unexpected support. Alistair released a statement praising Marcus's work and defending Vivien's leadership. Patterson Global called to confirm the merger was proceeding. Stock prices actually rose as investors responded to the narrative of competence over scandal. But the real surprise came when Emma's school principal called. Several parents had complained about the article, demanding Emma be removed from class. But the teacher, Miss Rodriguez, had started a petition in support. 23 parents signed it, declaring that Emma's family situation was irrelevant to her education. Your daughter is one of the kindest, most empathetic children I've taught. Miss Rodriguez's voice was firm over speakerphone. How her family formed doesn't change that. She's welcome in my classroom as long as she wants to be here. Emma cried when they told her, relief and gratitude mixing. I thought everyone would hate us. Some people might. Vivien held her close. But the people who matter see the truth. They see that we're a family regardless of how we started. Surgery was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 6:30 in the morning. Dr. Reeves walked them through the procedure one final time, explaining in careful detail what would happen, how long it would take, what recovery would look like. We'll make an incision here. She pointed to diagrams. Access the heart directly. Repair the defective valve and reinforce the muscle wall. The operation takes approximately 4 to 6 hours depending on what we find. And the risks, Marcus had to ask again, needed to hear it stated plainly. 15% chance of complications, bleeding, infection, adverse reaction to anesthesia. We'll have a full team monitoring every vital sign. I'll be performing the surgery myself with 2 assisting cardiac specialists. Emma listened to all of this with solemn attention, asking questions that showed she understood more than they wanted her to. Will it hurt when I wake up? You'll have pain medication. But yes, it will hurt some. Your body needs time to heal. How long until I can play soccer? 3 months minimum for full activity. But if everything goes well, you'll be running without getting tired for the first time in your life. That night, they had a quiet dinner together. Marcus made Emma's favorite meal, spaghetti with meatballs. Vivien had actually learned to make garlic bread that didn't burn. They ate slowly, savoring the normalcy of family dinner, storing the memory against uncertain futures. After Emma was in bed, Marcus found Vivien in their room, sitting on the edge of the bed with a box in her lap. What's that? She opened it, revealing a worn navy jacket. Your jacket, the one you gave me 20 years ago. I've kept it all this time. Marcus took it, the fabric soft with age, and suddenly a fragment of memory surfaced. Not complete, not detailed, but enough. A girl, scared and shaking. His own younger self, angry at the world but unable to walk away from someone who needed help. I remember, not all of it, but pieces, the feeling of it. You told me your name that night, made me promise to use it if I ever needed help. I never did, not until I saw you in that hotel bar and recognized those eyes. So you've been planning this for 20 years? No, I've been hoping for 20 years that if we met again, you'd be the same person who protected a stranger without wanting anything in return. And you were. They held each other in the darkness, the jacket between them, a bridge across 2 decades and a million differences. Monday night, Emma couldn't sleep. She came into their room at 2 in the morning, climbing into bed between them without asking permission. "I'm scared." Marcus pulled her close. "Me too, Ladybug. What if this is our last night together?" Vivien's voice was fierce in the darkness. "Then we make it count. We stay right here, the 3 of us, until morning. And we remember that love doesn't end, Emma. Your mommy proved that. She's been gone 3 years, but you still love her, still talk to her, still feel her watching over you. But what if I don't wake up? What if you two are sad forever? Then we'll be sad together." Marcus felt tears on his face. "But we'll also remember you. Your laugh, your drawings, your obsession with purple dragons. You'll live in us, Emma, the way Mommy lives in me. Promise me something." Emma's voice was small but determined. "Anything. Promise if I don't wake up, you stay together. You and Vivien. Don't let losing me break you apart." The request shattered them both. Vivien was crying openly now, holding Emma like she could prevent the universe from taking her. "We promise, but you are going to wake up. You're going to wake up and tell us about whatever weird dreams the anesthesia gives you. And then you're going to recover and get strong and run faster than any of those soccer kids." "You really think so?" "I know so, because you're the bravest person I've ever met." They stayed awake together until dawn, talking about everything and nothing. Emma told them about the purple dragon in her dreams who was actually Mommy Naomi in disguise. Vivien shared stories from her childhood in foster care, making Emma laugh with descriptions of disaster attempts at cooking. Marcus sang Naomi's favorite lullaby, his voice rough but steady. When the alarm went off at 4:30, none of them had slept. They got ready in exhausted silence, Emma changing into the hospital gown Dr. Reeves had sent home, purple naturally. The pre-op area was cold and clinical. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, administering preliminary medications. Emma was calm, eerily so, holding both their hands and making them promise to be there when she woke. Dr. Reeves appeared in surgical scrubs, her confidence a lifeline. "Ready, Emma? As ready as I'll ever be. That's my girl. You're going to do great. I'll see you in a few hours." The moment came too fast and too slow simultaneously. Emma was wheeled toward the surgical suite, Marcus and Vivien walking alongside until they reached the doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only." "This is where we stop." The nurse's voice was kind but firm. Emma looked up at them, and Marcus saw Naomi in her eyes, that same fierce determination wrapped in fragility. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you, Vivien. If I see Mommy, I'll tell her you're taking good care of each other." Vivien's composure shattered completely. "We love you so much, sweetheart, more than anything in this world." Then the doors closed and she was gone. The waiting room became their world. Marcus paced, unable to sit, his mind running through worst-case scenarios he couldn't control. Vivien sat rigid in a chair, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles went white. An hour passed, then 2. A nurse came out to update them, surgery progressing normally, all vitals stable. 3 hours. Marcus's legs gave out and he finally sat, Vivien immediately moving to sit beside him, their hands finding each other. "I can't lose her." His voice broke. "I already lost Naomi. I can't lose Emma too. You won't. We won't. How can you be sure? Because the alternative is unthinkable, and I refuse to think it." 4 hours, no update. The silence stretched, each minute an eternity. Marcus found himself praying, something he hadn't done since Naomi's funeral. Not to any specific deity, just to the universe, to fate, to whatever force controlled these impossible moments. He prayed for Emma's strength, for Dr. Reeves's skill, for mercy. Vivien leaned against him and he felt her lips moving, realized she was praying too. What are you saying? That if there's anyone listening, they can take anything from me. The company, the money, everything I've built. Just let her live. Let her wake up and be okay. 4 hours and 17 minutes after Emma went into surgery, Dr. Reeves appeared in the waiting room doorway. Her scrubs were clean, no blood, which Marcus took as a good sign. Her face was neutral, professional, impossible to read. Marcus stood, Vivien beside him, both holding their breath. She's out. The surgery went perfectly. We repaired the valve and reinforced the muscle wall. Everything took well. She's stable in recovery. The relief was so intense it was almost painful. Marcus felt his knees buckle, Vivien catching him, both of them holding each other upright. She's okay? She's more than okay. Dr. Reeves smiled, the first genuine emotion she'd shown. When she heals, she's going to have a completely normal life. No restrictions, no limitations. She can run, play, do everything other children do. When can we see her? She's still waking from anesthesia. Give it 30 minutes. Then you can go to recovery. Those 30 minutes felt longer than the surgery. They sat together, hands linked, not talking, just breathing through the relief and residual terror. When they were finally allowed into recovery, Emma was in a small room surrounded by monitors, tubes, and wires attached to her small body, but her eyes were open, and when she saw them, she smiled. Hi. Her voice was scratchy from the breathing tube. Did I get weird dreams? Marcus laughed, the sound cracking with emotion. Did you? I dreamed Mommy was holding my hand during the surgery. She was smiling. Said to tell you both she's proud of how you love each other. Vivien pressed her face into Emma's hand, crying openly. Your mommy is very wise. I know. Emma's eyes were already drifting closed again. Is it over? Am I fixed? You're fixed. Marcus smoothed her hair back. You're going to be so strong, Ladybug. Good, she murmured, sleep pulling her under. Because I want to beat Sophia at the 50-yard dash. She's been bragging all year. They sat with her through recovery, through the transfer to a regular room, through the first difficult hours when pain medication wore thin, and Emma cried from discomfort. They took shifts, one sleeping while the other kept vigil, a rhythm born of necessity and love. 3 days post-surgery, Emma took her first steps, slow, painful, but independent. Dr. Reeves declared the healing process right on track, barring complications. A week later, Emma was discharged. The ride home felt surreal. This child who'd been on the edge of death now chattering about what she wanted for dinner, about the homework she'd missed, about when she could start physical therapy. The penthouse welcomed them back, Mrs. Martinez having stocked the kitchen and left flowers on every surface. Emma settled onto the couch with her favorite blanket, looking small but infinitely more alive than she had 2 weeks ago. That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus and Vivien stood on the balcony where they'd stood so many times before, the city lights painting familiar patterns. 20 months from now, we should do this again. Do what? Get married. For real this time. Marcus pulled a small box from his pocket. I bought this 3 weeks ago, before the surgery, before the tabloid, because regardless of how this started, I want to choose you every day for the rest of my life. The ring was simple, elegant, nothing ostentatious. A single diamond set in platinum, the kind of ring that spoke of commitment rather than display. Vivien took it with shaking hands. We're already married, legally, but not in the way that matters. I want vows we write ourselves, witnesses who love us. Emma in a purple dress walking down the aisle. I want to marry you the way Naomi and I got married, with intention and hope and absolute certainty. Her answer came in the form of a kiss, deep and lasting and full of promise. When they broke apart, the ring was on her finger, catching the city lights. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They planned the ceremony for 20 months later, giving Emma time to heal completely, giving themselves time to build on foundation they'd laid. Alistair agreed to officiate, having become Emma's unofficial grandfather figure. Mrs. Martinez cried happy tears when asked to be part of the celebration. The months that followed were a study in ordinary miracles. Emma's strength returned gradually, physical therapy transforming her from fragile to fierce. 3 months post-surgery, Dr. Reeves cleared her for full activity. 6 months later, Emma joined the competitive soccer league and scored the winning goal in her first game. Marcus continued at Cross Industries, eventually accepting the CFO position after Vanessa's conviction. Vivien led the company through the Patterson merger, the deal closing successfully and adding billions in value. But more than professional success, they built a life. Saturday morning pancakes became tradition, all 3 of them in the kitchen, flour everywhere, laughter echoing off expensive walls. Emma's drawings covered the refrigerator in colorful chaos, purple dragons sharing space with family portraits. They talked about Naomi regularly, keeping her memory alive through stories and photographs and the purple threads woven through their lives. Emma's room had a photo of her mother on the nightstand, and before bed each night, she told Naomi about her day. The wedding happened on a Saturday in late spring, exactly 20 months after Marcus first woke with a ring on his finger. The venue was the same hotel where they'd met, the ballroom transformed into something magical. Emma walked down the aisle first, wearing a purple dress she'd picked herself. Carrying a basket of flower petals she scattered with theatrical flair. The guests, a careful mixture of family and friends, watched with misty eyes. Then Vivien appeared, not in traditional white, but in deep navy blue, a nod to the jacket that had started everything. Alistair walked beside her, offering the father figure she'd never had. Marcus stood at the altar, watching the woman he'd married in confusion become the woman he was choosing in clarity, and felt Naomi's blessing like sunshine. The vows were everything they should be. Marcus spoke about second chances and built families, about learning that love wasn't replacement but expansion. Vivien talked about walls coming down and finding home in unexpected places, about a little girl teaching her what family meant. When Alistair pronounced them married, Emma cheered loudest, throwing her arms around both of them in a hug that nearly knocked them over. The reception was joyful chaos. Emma taught Vivien's board members the proper way to do the chicken dance. Marcus's former co-workers from his old job appeared, having seen the news and wanting to celebrate. Even Dr. Reeves came, dancing with Emma and declaring her the healthiest patient she'd ever had. Late in the evening, Marcus found Vivien alone for a moment, watching Emma play with other children, running and laughing without any hint of limitation. "Look at her." Vivien's voice was full of wonder. 3 years ago, she could barely walk across a room. Now she's unstoppable. Because of you, because you gave us this chance. No, because you had the courage to accept help when you needed it. Because you chose dignity over desperation. Because you taught me that families are built by choice, not obligation. Emma ran over, breathless and grinning. "Can we go home now? I'm tired." Home. The word carried weight, meaning permanence. "Yeah, ladybug." Marcus scooped her up, feeling how strong she'd become. "Let's go home." They left the reception early, just the 3 of them, returning to the penthouse that had transformed from a sterile showcase into a home filled with love and laughter and purple dragon drawings. Emma fell asleep in the car and Marcus carried her to bed, Vivien following. They tucked her in together, this child who'd saved them both in different ways, and stood watching her breathe easily, her heart beating strong and steady. In their own room later, Marcus and Vivien lay in the darkness, hands linked between them. "Do you ever think about how this started?" Vivien's voice was quiet. How insane it all was. Every day. And every day I'm grateful for the insanity. Your wife, Naomi, she would have liked how this turned out, wouldn't she? Marcus thought about Naomi's final words, about her hope that he'd find happiness again, about Emma's dreams where her mother smiled approval. Yeah, she would have loved you. Because you see us, Vivien. You see Emma as a person, not a sick kid. You see me as a partner, not a charity case. Naomi always said the greatest gift is being truly seen. I do see you, both of you, and what I see is my family, my home, everything I never thought I'd have. They fell asleep that way, two people who'd started as strangers bound by contract, now joined by choice and love, and the daily decision to keep choosing each other. Emma's voice woke them early the next morning, bouncing into their room with characteristic energy. Good morning. Can we have pancakes and can we go to the park? And also I need to tell you something important. What's that, sweetheart? I had another dream about Mommy last night. Marcus sat up, fully awake now. What did she say? She said thank you for loving me, for loving each other, for building the family she always wanted me to have. She said to tell you she's happy, and we're allowed to be happy too. Vivien pulled Emma into a hug, and Marcus joined them. The three of them tangled together in morning light, and for the first time since Naomi died, Marcus felt complete peace. Love didn't replace love, it just made more. Emma had been right all along. Their family was built from broken pieces and second chances, from contracts that became commitments, from strangers who became everything. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't traditional, but it was theirs, and it was real, and that was enough. More than enough, it was everything.